All right, so we'll wait for a few people to come in, I suppose, before we take off our sweet hats.
Yeah, yours is really weird too. It's got this strobe thing going on.
Yeah, the freaking green screen's messing with it.
Yeah.
Looks like the Hogwarts sorting hat kind of. I don't know what's going on with yours, Snippy.
Yeah, mine's got magical spells going on underneath it. All right, so we got about 100, 125 coming in. We, in case you guys are wondering, we had to grab a hat real quick, you know, to make the Three Amigos official. And of course, I got headphones on. I got the strap across my forehead. You know,
you're looking good.
It's a new fashion statement.
And I've got a giant winter storm here that has flooded out the entire area, and we've had like I think over 70 inches of rain since November. And this morning at 6, I had to get up and muck with the septic because of the amount of rain we've got coming. There's things you've got to do here in order to manage all of this. And 6 in the morning, it's not a good time to get up and have to face this kind of weather.
Yeah. Hey, you got the right hat for it, Cliff.
Indeed. Hey, I'm planning on the Ice Age. I'm not fooling around. You got to see my coats. I mean, seriously.
Right. Disrobe.
I knocked it over again. So how you doing?
Good. Everybody on my side up here is good. We got good weather in Florida, of course, and yeah, everything's chugging along over here. Just waiting to see some of these interesting events starting to unfold more and more and more rapidly and more rapidly.
Hey, it has not disappointed, has it?
Has not.
I thought year 0 was going to be bad. Yeah. Year Woo is getting really crazy really early.
And it's not bad. I loved year Woo and all of the descriptions. Year 0, the transition year, was the pain in the ass because your mind was still in normal, but the reality was not. And now we're into year Woo. Our minds are kind of like cartoon fashion, snapping forward. And we recognize there is no normal. We're going to have to invent that. So it's like, okay, now we can examine it all and see what's going on. And it's really damn strange.
I think it's exciting and strange. I mean, so much of all our crazy predictions over the years seem to be lining up to be coming true. That's amazing.
Right this moment too. Yeah. Yeah. I had the old data sets sent in, and I've been messing with the data in that sense. I've been running algorithms against it. Because I have a data set that I know to be compromised. I know there was blue chicken shit in it. And the censorship had just started to really creep into where it was really clamping down. However, as I demonstrated with the 28th and 29th forecast for emotional spike, you can still pick up the building and release emotional tensions fairly easily within a 30-day time frame. I'm trusting it out to 30 days, but who knows, right? That's what we're going to have to go on because my sample size is taken from so few places, and I won't say where they are because I don't want them polluted. But it's just a very narrow sample size, but it's accurate now for the building tension. And that may just be because there's so much of it that, you know, I'm just tripping over it, so to speak, right? But the 28th and 29th was bang. It was just, that was our stonk. That's our stonk right here. This is that level of emotional tension. And it actually started on the 22nd and the 23rd and ramped up fairly zippy to that effect that we got. Now, the forecast that I had that ran that forecast that was done back here in December. So that forecast didn't extend much beyond the 8th of February. So I couldn't plot that emotional data set any further out into the future because I don't have intermediate or long-term data. I mean, it's just not available with the censorship. Just can't happen. But that was accurate. It was also in an area I couldn't forecast as to what dynamic, you know, finance, religion, space, you know, sewage, food, or whatever, right? No way of knowing. But here's the thing. This is the one we've got coming up. And what I've been doing is I've been using the old data sets as a repository. and I validate our current building tensions against that repository to see if there's any concurrence between language that was forecast from 2016 and language that's appearing right now to reinforce any of those data sets that appeared in 2016 to give us a better idea of what these emotional spikes might be about, right? And so I couldn't do it back on this one, so I had no clue as to what it might have been about. Could have been politics, you know, could have been a global bus strike or Uber going down for all I know, and no way of telling. Now on this one, I've plotted against the old data sets and I've got a lot of verbiage, and we can now see if some of that verbiage will actually apply when the emotional spike hits. Doesn't mean that the suggestions as to data sets that might be effective or affective are accurate, but we'll know soon enough. And because the same algorithms in emotional tension that forecast this range and spike, which we just lived through and everybody just experienced, has forecast this one right here. So I have no reason to believe that it's going to be, that it's going to fail on this one when it succeeded on that one. We'll just have to see, but there's some confidence that we're going to get this next spike. And the base on this spike starts from a higher level on the emotional tension. And so there's the result of the spike here with our stonk is that we're now at a higher level of emotional tension, and I can get to why I think that is in a minute. But this one right here starts off on the 8th, something in around the 8th of February. But the data from the old data sets that are being reinforced would suggest that we're entering into that period from which people awaken to the fragility of the financial system, and that forces them to examine cryptos in a way that they had not, like the masses of people, right? Because now all of a sudden it becomes real to them, and it's not simply us conspiracy guys going, yeah. And so, so now there's demonstrable things going on, and the data sets would suggest that during this period of time here, that this jump in emotional tension base is as a result of that. So the stonk got a whole lot of the normies' attention. And as a result of that, now the herds, everybody's hairs are up, and we're all at a much higher level of elevation, and we start right here. Now, this is drawn in purple deliberately, okay? Because as I read through the data sets and looked at the emotional aspects of this, it pointed me towards the powers that be in the elites. And so we'll present this aspect of it from their viewpoint, not from mine, not from a regular guy's viewpoint, but from the viewpoint of the powers that be. And what we're going to have happen is that some kind of an event that will likely not be visible to us non-elites is going to happen around the 8th, and it's going to go along very, very, very quiescent, and then ratchet up in like exponential speed to have a spike on the 11th that's nearly as high as the stonk relative to the emotions within the populace. So even though this is drawn in purple to reflect the point of view of the powers that be, the value ratio here is the value of the impact on the emotions of the populace. That makes sense?
Could it be related to, I mean, clearly people's eyes are starting to open as to naked shorting. I have noticed for the last 2 days in silver, for example, the volumes have gone literally off the charts, over 1.5 billion ounces over the last 2 days, each day. And it started on the 28th, right when, you know, kind of the GameStop's stuff started, and the Reddit guys posted the silver. Hey, what about this silver short? Now, those guys don't play on the comics, but at the same time, other players, I'll call them the good guys, do. And just to see that kind of a spike, over triple the amount of volume has happened in the last 2 days in silver, although the price hasn't barely gone up anything. Could it be that the more and more information that gets out there exposes these silver shorts and the game that's gone on in silver and puts that attention, even if they aren't on the COMEX trading with the big boys, someone is buying or trading massive amounts of physical silver to keep price in check. I mean, I had always looked at
I wouldn't
silver,
suspect it was that specific, okay? Because to be quite honest, the amount of emotional tension, okay, so the silver guys and gold guys are very vocal, but they're also minuscule. Right? I mean, look at the amount of actual physical gold and silver in circulation or being held, really, and you see that you're not talking tens of millions of people. I mean, there might be 10 million people in the US that own physical silver. I don't know. There might be 20 million or whatever, but it's not a large enough mass that it's going to shift the population at this level. And look what it took in the 70s. So you guys remember the big silver rush in the 70s as Nixon took us off the gold standard and all of the problems with the dollar. Everybody got into silver, and silver ounces went up to $100 an ounce if you could find them. And people would, buy 10 ounces of these things, because in the 70s, $1,000 was real damn money. You could buy a car, almost a new car, for $2,000, right? So under the circumstances, that was very valuable, and people started hoarding it then, and the price crashed miserably down to the $2 or $3 that we ended up with when we hit this new millennium. So, and it took a lot to move the gold and silver price, and even when it did in the 70s, even in that smaller population, it did not resonate through the mass of the population the way that we might think. Yes, there were long lines at the places to buy and sell silver, but compared to today's food lines or lines to buy ammo, they were minuscule. It'd be the difference between a theater versus a stadium, that kind of a thing, right? There just is not that mass to account for this kind of an emotional spike. And look at the amount of people it took to get the emotional spike on the stonk. It took 2 million in that one subreddit, another 6 million. There was estimated 44 million new traders participated in this, okay? But that was over the course of from the 23rd, well, and actually that's like 16 million new Ameritrade accounts since May. And, X number of new whatever exchange accounts since May, millions added. And then they all participated in this, but even so, at 44 million, it took that many people involved in this to generate enough emotional tension around it to create the verbiage that then hit all of the websites, all of the mainstream media even, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see a direct correlation to the impact coming out of the media that we just lived through and what it took to get there. So to get something that's almost that high, it'd have to be like every ounce of silver disappearing and going to Mars instantly or something. Who knows?
What about a ban on short selling? I mean, clearly
let's go back to Joe here for a second. What were you saying, Joe?
When you first said that, I just got this thing like, oh, so you mentioned we're kind of looking from the elite side, not our side.
Right.
So if the damage to the banking system that this event has just caused starts to play out, they're going to see it first, and we're going to go to work and eat, and everything's fine, and they're all panicking, going, holy shit, we're in trouble. And then it becomes visible on or about the 11th.
Right.
That's what my gut was like, oh, what if that happens?
That's really the kind of thinking I've got here. And I think it's systemic. I don't think that we could call it the banking system, but we should maybe call it like, the banking political entertainment complex or something, because the damage is quite real, and it has been fantastically huge, and it has exposed them at a level that has been, that has them now all freaking out, because the same, all right, well, Citadel. Okay, so it's rumored that the press secretary's brother was a hedge fund manager at Citadel, and they're scrubbing that record as fast as they can. And she looks white as a sheet when it's brought up, right? They don't want to discuss it. So it reaches deep, and you start looking into the people involved in the hedge funds and the damage that's been done. So the damage that's been done is calculable now. They can take the losses, et cetera, on one level. But on another level, there's this whole public exposure thing of everything they've been doing. As we've all seen, the dirt's just flowing up like mad. And in that dirt, we get into the secrets revealed issue, because now we've got the secrets revealed. Not only were they short on GameStop, they're short on 5,001 companies. So there's 5,001 new targets. Now, if you calculate all of the 5,001 short companies and the amount that is shorted on there, there's something like 460% more shorts than exist stock. So they're going to have to start covering fast in order to not be a victim to whichever new target is picked for another stonk, right? And so now it's like, this is warfare. This is a new level of tactic within an overall larger strategy that's playing out. Their strategy is ancient and creaking. Their tactics are patchwork kludges, and they're able to be damaged by the new stonk tactic on this side, which is like we've just invented the financial trebuchet. And so we can put our stonk in the trebuchet and wind up our ropes and release it, and it flings the stonk into the Wall Street and smashes through one of their patchwork criminal, illegal mechanisms for ripping off the populace. And so that one goes, and not only does it destroy that one, but it lets in a huge amount of light so that we can see the mechanisms of some of the others. And we can better aim as to the next stonk needs to be thrown. And so we get better, they get worse. We get even more better as they get even worse. And they're in a position where they've got to patch up a system that is so old and creaky, it dates back to 1913, and actually 1910 when they planned it. And it's been evolving, breaking, and creaking along ever since. And it was due to fall apart on its own, which is why they came up with the Great Reset, which we've already rejected en masse. Anytime it comes up in anything other than their controlled media, it's like, we ain't gonna have that kind of stuff. And so that's the first one that they've propped up. I think that they're gonna try and come up with something to patch this problem that they've got. And here's the thing, the linguistics say it ain't gonna work. You can't get your goal going that way. Your aim is too wrong. I mean, I've just got vast quantities of language. It just keeps going on to this. It's gonna be a purification by fire. It's what we would call in Aikido, a misogi on the part of the populace, in the sense that we're just gonna breathe our ki up and be, I guess, autistic about it again, and we're going to do another kind of a stonk in relation to whatever this is right here. Now, I've got two lines there, okay? One of them is dashed and one of them is solid. Those are the energy lines that continue from this event, because we're able to project it out because we're doing the analysis so close to the time. Now, they're not going to get their goal, but something else that's going to happen is that we're not going to calm down. The populace is not going to calm down after this right here and our successful stonk, whatever the successful stonk may not be in any way related to financial, even though it's going to maybe be in a financial realm, right? Because we've got to look at the complexities of this. $72 billion was wiped out in this stonk. And that $72 billion is a giant float for the Democratic National Communists of the USA. And so their coffers took a huge hit. This has been a giant disaster to the ruling elite and to the uniparty, both Republicans and Democrats. Their funding sources are puking out all over, and the illegal relationship between the politicians and the funding sources and the media is being exposed to the point where denying is just going to bring on fits of laughter. So we're at that kind of a point here. And I know that they won't get it, but the reason I've got two lines is that if I use my new algorithm, we get down to an energy release of about here. But if I use the old one from the old data sets, we get an energy release that's a little bit smaller. And I can't say yet which is going to be more accurate. But this is this part right here from the spike over is something we could call forced change. So the circumstances are going to cause a major change to occur from, like, say, the 13th or 14th or 15th or so on. And those circumstances will have been initiated from the 8th and will ramp up into the 11th. And that's at that point, then we go into the release phase of it, and that's when shit starts falling apart. Now, it could be that it's the banking system that takes a big hit. We get into another 2006, 2008 kind of a crisis that is magnificently more huge. It could be that COMEX suddenly collapses as a minor part of whatever is going on. Because bear in mind, what you know what the emotional intensity was over these last couple of days. Imagine trying to sustain that over this period of time, like here. So, I mean, so short of war, short of active shooting war, and there's a lot of language that suggests that might be part of this.
So could it be the secrets revealed, as in like the building type of secrets revealed, when people go in and find the documents, say about, it could be anything, truthfully. It could be,
because
stocks.
It could be anything. The only thing I have for sure is that the nature of this and the descriptors of the language within the short immediacy sets that I'm sampling, the dominant aspect is electrifying in all of its permutations, okay? And it's not relating to electricity per se, but more to the electrifying feeling in our nervous system.
Oh, like a bunch of people getting arrested finally? That would be pretty electric.
It could also be a giant, okay, because you're talking about the moon coming in. If you'll notice, anytime we have a new moon, especially as we hit into perigee, the magnetosphere shrinks down. It could be that there's more energies coming in from behind the Earth, and we're all going to just be, into Zombieville for a while. Who knows? I mean, I've actually, as a precursor to what we're getting into in year woo, I'm giving up caffeine, have given it up. And I'm not alone. A lot of people are just letting the caffeine fall off because the excitatory energies from space are getting their vagus nervous systems too amped as it is. And I think it's a very wise idea, and I feel a lot better and a lot calmer relative to these energies as we go forward, having done so. So, just one of the things you've got to do to adapt to what we're going through. You may have to change your diet. A lot of people are going through spontaneous diet changes. And this is in response to their body feeling the energy, and they don't know what's going on, but they got to change something, kind of a thing, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, now I'm hoping that this is directly connected to the financial system, but financial, political, we have a lot of language in those data sets about, we're being in a really very prescient data sets, being in a totalitarian regime and too late to escape, and now's the time for fighting, all of that kind of stuff. What's interesting about this from the perspective of the powers that be is that the old data set languages from 2016 are suggesting that their viewpoint is no regrets at trying whatever the hell it is, but it's not going to happen. And they recognize that, and from here on over, it's like a fighting retreat, a running battle through the hillsides where you have to adapt and you can't tell who's winning kind of thing, right? That sort of thing going on. So this might be the crumbling of the financial system. This might be an onrush into cryptos, which gets these guys all freaked out. Just no way of telling at this stage. But from their viewpoint, it's not going to be good. They're going to think that they've got things under control, and then there's going to be an exponential sweep up over the 9th through into the 11th. And then by the end of the 11th, we'll have peaked on it and gone into our release. And that's when their real problems start becoming visible to them.
It's so funny. Like my mind goes through 50 different things that it could be. For example, the release that, hey,
who cares, right? I mean, it's not true. That is not factual. But no matter what I would say about either of those individuals, you would not have an emotional rise that would get this kind of thing. This is an emotional rise that is your present and affecting your future. And so that's got to be, money, food, oxygen, water, warfare, politics. I hate that, but it is in there. Even mail delivery, that kind of thing is in that sort of a now into the future, and stuff out of the past is just not going to be driving it. To a great extent, that's why the silver thing is never going to be an emotion, in my opinion, an emotional driver until in the very late stages of our transition. And then it might drive a lot of people into a frenzy to acquire silver for their own needs. And that may be more privacy than anything, right? So we may find that silver ends up becoming, as a currency, as a tradable commodity between people, something that's used as the ultimate stealth coin. And thus commands a premium for that reason alone. You know, it's like if they outlaw silver, only outlaws have silver.
or you know, because we're on this, call it timeline or whatever, of compressed time. Holy shit, that thing happened. Oh my god, that happened. Oh my god, that's next. Oh my god, what if there's a whole bunch of shit? Oh, the stock thing went to next level. They're panicking. Oh, secrets revealed just happened. Holy shit, silver's running. Like just bang, 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 rapid fire, a bunch of shit happening at the same time. I mean, hell, that could happen.
Yeah, whatever it is, that would do it. That would drive my emotions way the hell up.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but whatever it is, it's going to do this, and that's not the end of it. We go through into March, and then by March 15th, we have this our next spike on March 15th. Actually, it may occur from the 15th into the 19th in that way, but that's really extending the immediacy data way out to untrustworthy area, right? But in any event, though, this track right here, it's a battle over land. The powers that be are going to be engaging in turf wars with the populace from now through 2026. In one way or another, we're in war with the powers that be and the ruling elite, the system, whatever you want to say. Another way to phrase it would be that for the next 6 years here, we're going to be, or 5 years, we're going to be in our transition through to a maturing sci-fi world. And so in 2026, whatever the world looks like then will be the more or less shape it's going to be the rest of this decade. But anything in 2025 would be suspect. 2024 may not last, you know, et cetera, right? So we're in a transition period during these years. And during that transition period, the powers that be are going to be desperately fighting for their turf that they claim. We're already seeing it now. I think there's now 3 print newspapers, that's significant, being devoted to free Britain from the monarchy, that we can't afford the monarchy anymore, they've got to go, and this kind of thing. And 2 of them are relatively recent, so it's now starting to gain steam there. And those kind of global revolt signs are creeping in all over. So the great planetary awakening is happening, and the powers that be are in their first emotional spike was right here. Okay, that's when the orcs came on up and bitch slapped them and said stonk. Okay, and now we're going to see, I think this is the beginning of their response. This period of time in between here may be our reply to their response, and then here is where their response collapses on its own. So I'm actually hopeful that this might be number 2 of their fixes for the system that they proffer that we throw away, because there were 3 of them that were forecast. 3 times they're going to offer something to fix or replace the dollar, and the populace is going to say, no way, Jose. And so at that point, then we move into crypto. Then we're into scattered world where anything and everything is currency, where we have currency in the form of silver, gold, all different kinds of stuff, cryptos, this sort of thing, because we're getting into sci-fi world, and we're at that point where we're truly becoming spacefaring. And I just wanted to get there. So I was sort of hoping, oh, maybe this is number 2. And, so they proffered the Great Reset before the election, and it was, so they're not, it's the Great Reset language is settling down. No one's proffering it anymore. They're taking the websites down, all of that, right? And so as the language changes, we know that their thinking has changed and their plans have changed. So what will they offer here for this? It may be that they're going to try and fix the political system at this stage, but I don't think so. It could be that this is the point of time where we have open military rule of the US acknowledged. It could, because that would do it. Emotionally, that would do it. And yeah, and that would keep it going at this level too, right? So that's the easiest thing for the mind to cling to now that would fulfill the conditions of the height of the spike and the continuation of the energies. But factually or forecastingly, I don't have anything that would suggest that, although there is a lot of language about wounds and, military kind of stuff in that sense, sharing burdens, all of these kind of things. There's also a bunch of the language that shows up now that's related in the immediacy language that's related to sets that have Antarctica in it as well. So I think we are getting closer to a lot of these secrets revealed things popping off. And if we, maybe we can pick it up, maybe we'll be able to look really closely and be able to see what they, on the 8th, what the powers that be start doing. So if we start hearing things like, oh, maybe on the 8th, 7th or 8th, the SEC comes on out and tries to run something up the flagpole to see if we'll salute, right? Then we kind of can get a hint as to where things are going to be headed here. So I would really concentrate on watching the elite language that they put out from the, like the early morning of the 8th through to maybe into the 10th. We should really know by the 10th, I would think, because we'll be looking for it. But it's going to be way interesting again. This electrification, this electrifying of the audience for whatever it is that they do that doesn't work is really cool. Okay, so the way that our system works here, so the emotional reduction engine separates language into language that is body part, affective, effective, and related. So there's, for instance, head verbs, all of the verbs of perception, seeing, tasting, etc., right? There's thinking, all of the abstraction verbs, and all of those kind of things. So what we have, and then there's the body verbs, throwing, striking, catching, anything that, so you could have a strike, a head strike, but that's still a body verb because it's not anything with the mind, it's the body that's doing it. And so the body, our relationship with our bodies is so intimate that leaks out in our psychic impressions continuously in our language. And so what we have here in this immediacy language that goes to the idea of electrification is electrifying your nerves. So here we have a very small subset of verbs that go to the body mind and the aspects of desire and feeling. Okay, so this is the key to gender, by the way. Physical, biological gender can be summed up in women have a tendency to have their body mind occupied by feeling more often than desire. Men have a tendency to have that flipped and occupy their body, mind, and desire more often than they occupy it with feeling. And it relates to nerves versus circulatory system, and which relates to hunter versus the food gathering kind of stuff. So it's all biological and all evolutionary. So it's very, very, very powerful. So to find the language concentrating in a narrow subset of verbs that are related to the feeling, the nerves, suggests a whole lot relative to this particular emotional spike. So one thing I could suggest is that it may be much more effective of women than men, whereas our stonk was more men, right? It was more about desire, crush them, that kind of thing, right? And so here we're going to get more of the feeling aspect of it, the nerves tingling, the body just responding that way. And so I think we can make some speculations, we can make some okay. And that,
yeah.
that would promote the feeling. All the women would get the big rush as Harris became the first female president. And then it's like, what the hell from that point on, right? So that might happen. If so, maybe he's taken ill on the 8th, that kind of thing. So,
well, one of the government contractor girls, Tori, that I follow, who's got always had really interesting information, tweeted something today that I was a little reluctant to retweet, and I think
Yeah.
you just hit it.
And he need not even perish. It might just be that he's removed,
Yeah.
because we all know he's, Dementia Joe, right?
Didn't
Or he's a clone or whatever the hell.
didn't Trump say that right before he left? He said something like, "Look out for the 25th Amendment, Joe," or something like that.
Yeah. And it may well be the case that he goes down in history as one of those short presidents that, who's just and out. But we're in truly bizarre times with not a lot of explanation for public behavior. And so here's the thing, right? I used to, for lack of anything, I was bored. And so I was feeling better. This is last year in 2019. And so in 2019, I started haunting the Chinese deep web just to see what the hell was out there. And I was scandalized. I mean, I was just it was disgusting, the things the CCP was doing. Not because there were reports of disease at that stage, but because there were reports that the CCP was doing weird shit and offering no explanation and just bulldozing any kind of local opposition to it at all. And it made no sense under the current political conditions that held sway there until now I understand, right? They were reacting to a biological weapon leaking out of their lab. So my saying here is that human behavior en masse is a language that has no lies, right? So if you look at, statistics in that sense, you can lie with statistics, but if you analyze human behavior accurately in a broad scale, individual lies don't propagate through at that level, at that collective aspect of it. And so I think we're at that time for our own personal power elites, and that we truly are in a transition period through year Woo, and we may find that by the time we get to June, we're essentially exhausted by the minuscule amount of secrets revealed that have come out then. Now, we may not get into a situation where Dementia Joe is 25th, right? He may still be there and all of that. Doesn't make any difference. But in this area right here, we may indeed get to the point where in just a few days, the secrets revealed ramp up as a direct result of the stonk, because the play out of the stonk won't really start until Monday. And we don't know what's going to happen on Monday in terms of, language coming out, who's going to say what about whom, and all of this kind of stuff. We know the SEC is being, they've got Congress's boot up their butt trying to figure out how to roll it back, too late now, but now how to punish the stonkers. And so the SEC wants to punish the stonkers. But how are they going to punish the retail trade without destroying the retail trade for Wall Street? And, if we're having a trade, then who's going to trade? And there goes Wall Street. So basically, there's no good outcome for any of them in this. The SEC even saying that they're thinking of punishing the retail trade for the stonk is mind blowing. I mean,
Yeah.
How could they do that?
Let me read you this tweet real quick from her. So on the 25th of January, she wrote, you can't attack them when they are mourning. Of course, let's use the death card. # coming soon. That was the 25th. She wrote today, 13 hours ago, I should say. Preview ? I think someone's
yeah. And maybe he's on ice and it's been a body double all this time. Who knows, right?
The old Ruth Bader
yeah. Yes, Ruth Bader sickle. Yes.
Or Hillary sickle too.
Yeah, it could be. It's a terrible time, guys. I mean, it's just it's batshit crazy times.
Well, just looking at your chart there, that's all happening within weeks. That's all.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is
2 weeks.
For so many years, we were working with all that long-term data, 19 months out, all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, whoa, and then you get into this screwiness of, so I'm wondering, well, right now, so now there'll never be another election in the United States, another national election. all right, and a couple of reasons. First off, who's going to ever trust Dominion voting machines? I think Trump knew that they were going to steal the Senate in Georgia, no matter what anybody did. And so he strategically said, fuck the Republicans, right? At that point, because he knew the Democrats were going to steal it anyway. It had that exact same pattern of votes pumping in, taking over the leader, et cetera, as we saw in the nationals. I mean, just an analysis is just incredibly accurate, showing that this theft was using the same algorithm, et cetera. So if that's the case, then we can presume that any election run with the Dominion machines automatically takes your vote and puts it to the Democrats. So why bother? So, I'm not going to vote. They're going to vote for me. And so we're now into this uniparty system of totalitarian regime. It's too late to run. So therefore, we must fight in order to, and not just simply fight to preserve ourselves, but fight to upend the system in a peaceful revolution. Because the alternative is not to be discussed on videos, right? And so the peaceful revolution component of this has already started, and we see it with the stonk. And they're just not prepared. The powers that be are not prepared for all of us to I wish I had that poem in front of me, rise up and cast off those chains that have fallen upon you while you slept. Rise up, you are many and they are few, from Percy Bysshe Shelley. Ozymandias, was that it? No, that was another one. But
don't ask me.
But in any event, but it's a true that en masse they cannot defeat us, right? You can't have the military fight its population. The population always wins. At some point, the population defeats the military, and then they depose the existing rulers. And that's what these people are seriously wondering right now, is how long their lifespan is. And I suggest that it runs out to 2026. And there's a lot to suggest that we're following another pattern. So in 1917, there was the Bolshevik Revolution. But what people don't understand was the Russian Revolution started in 1912. So about the same time that we were starting the monetary system here, the Russians were getting tired of the reign of the Tsar, and there was a Russian Revolution that started in 1912. It ran and was successful by 1917. They had deposed the Tsar. He and his family were in lockup. They were being held to be released. There were negotiations underway to release them in France and in England. The Russian parliament had formed itself. A republic was forming. And so they had a very effective revolution, but in general, not violent at all. And then in 1917, in the midst of the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks came. They were financed by large Rothschild money. And this was when Lenin was brought in and all of this. The communists came in 1917 and overthrew the revolution. They did not overthrow the Tsar. So the communists just came on in and overthrew the revolution during a state of political instability. They were cohesive enough to have their way with the rest of the other scattered groups. And so it was easy for them to overtake Russia. The first thing they did was to slaughter the Tsar and his family so that there could never be any more royalty in Russia, et cetera, et cetera. And then they set off from 1917 until 1929 to conquer Russia. Russia fought back up until 1929. They actually had to have the Bolsheviks go down the Caucasus and march across the landmass of Russia, 12 damn time zones, fighting their way all the way through to Siberia before they finally were able to say that all of Russia had become Sovietized. So now, are we in that same kind of a cycle? Will we be fighting here for up until 2026 with our revolution not taken over by the Bolsheviks, not taken over by the Antifa and everything? In other words, had the Bolsheviks moved too early and grabbed power in the form of Biden and their arms of Antifa and the
BLM.
no, what are those guys, the Goober Boys or whatever the hell they are?
Oh yeah, the Juju.
I forget the name. Yeah,
I forget the name, but they don't have good PR, so who the hell cares? But really, basically, they're all supporting Black Lives Matter. They're all supporting woke Wokeanism and so on. So basically we're in a totalitarian regime now that resembles Soviet era almost into Stalin in terms of the leftist purge against each other and the qualifiers and all of this and all of that language. We're almost there in terms of Stalin years. But now we have a true revolution coming on out that's destroying the Wokians where they live, which is this vast quantity of communist money for the rich. Because we've all been living in a system, all of my life and all of your lives, where our taxes and all of our effort go to support the power elite through a system that is basically communistic with them raping all of us. It's a communism that we don't participate in. And we're only given nominal say as to what happens. That's why they hated Trump so much. You know, I really never could understand it until I examined it at that level, that they hated Trump personally because he was the embodiment of basically all of us and the threat to them. And they know their system is long in the tooth and they're desirous of replacing it anyway and to get rid of it anyway, but they can't figure out how to get something and slide it in and, you know, and get us all distracted and that kind of a deal, right? And that's what we're about to run into here is, I think, is that the financial system, like you were saying, Joe, the rush into cryptos, there was a big government problem. I always had the data sets have February is when Reggie would be contacted because there was a major damn crises, you know, to maybe apply some of his stuff to their issues. So it was always a spring effort that led into the, you know, way back in the descriptions of that aspect of Veritasium. It was always that Reggie would be contacted at the depths of winter and then it would be up into spring that we would start seeing some results from the thinking there. And that, you know, this is good for us because even though he might be contacted by the powers that be and put to work that way, the underlying blockchain stuff is lie proof, like the populace, you know, like all of our movements en masse.
I do know that our friend Jean-Claude is interviewing Reggie Middleton, I think next week sometime.
Cool, cool.
I mean,
really fascinating guy.
Those 98 million Veritasium tokens are still in limbo, and it's just crazy. And I did some work with Jenny Moonstone on this guy Jeffrey Tabin, the guy who Reggie had brought in, who's a old school financial guy, very well respected, one of the first computer traders in the 80s. Brought him on as the co-CEO right before all this shit went down with the SEC. I think he's still working in the background saying, hey, we can keep our same system. We just have to fix it. And Reggie had a solution. Here's what we could do, theoretically.
Well, we have to destroy the system, though, unfortunately. Right. It's got to go because it, you know, it's showing up all over the place. We're seeing the blowback from the lockdowns. This could even be, by the way, something right here. So, you know, we could get into an explosion of bad results or something. So something that's going to be emotionally driving could be money, but it'll all be from immediacy outward, nothing in the past. So unfortunately, you know, our real history is in the past and that kind of stuff. So the glimmers of hope for me is that there were a few words about Antarctica showing up for this. Nothing specific, but just the mere fact that that's showing up is good.
Hey, that land, you talked about the land stuff, and you know, obviously Joe and I have been running around in Southwest America where mainly it's a lot of BLM land, a lot of national parks. The federal government owns so much already. Anything on the horizon of revealing what's freaking buried in the ground around?
Yeah, yeah. See, that's the thing about the secrets revealed from Antarctica. Okay, so there's a descriptor set from, maybe it was building in 2010 it first started showing up, although we'd had Antarctica things going back like 2005. But there was this descriptor set that I ultimately called real human history or real history. In there, we're going to find some kind of a structure that doesn't relate to current modern man, that is before the end of the last ice age. And we'll find that in Antarctica. The structure will be, I don't know if it'll be damaged, I don't know what condition will be or any of that kind of stuff, but it will be discovered, and it will be discovered that it is indeed pre last ice age breakup. Okay, so it'll be older than 12,000 years old, and it will be obviously built for hominids by hominids, and these hominids will be about our same size. Okay, no giant people or anything like that. But the structure is going to have the pointers in it to other places on Earth that will then go and look for exposing our real old history. So in other words, it's not all in Antarctica. There's Antarctica is, and maybe we'll find a map that says, you know, X marks the spot, go over here, and damn if it isn't the Grand Canyon. Who knows, right? But it could be much more sophisticated than that. It could be that it takes us 10 years to discover in that thing we find in Antarctica, those pointers to other parts of the planet. Could be that it takes another 10 years for that to come out for humans, for regular population, but I don't think so. The reason I don't think so is because there's stuff going on in Antarctica that is going to lead to confrontation. This confrontation is going to involve the Russians and the CCP and maybe the United States. I don't know how the USA is going to be playing in international politics in these next 6 years, okay? We may just be taking a very much a back seat as we sort our own stuff out. But at the moment, you know that Antarctica is sliced up like in wedges and given to all these nations according to international agreement that goes back ultimately, but it was all really finalized and firmed up in 1957-58 in the International Geodetic Year, right, or Geophysical Year. And that's when they really clamped down military control in Antarctica and all of this kind of stuff. Something happened in 1956 and 1957 that had the powers that be in apocalyptic freakout mode starting in 1958, and they've never left it. Anyway, so the Antarctica, they've got the Chinese moving 1,000 kilometers outside of their territory. And they're 1,000 kilometers into like Norway's territory or someplace. And not only are they moving into somebody else's territory, it's not coastal. And this is very, very, very unusual because to cross the vastness of Antarctica in the middle takes some engineering, some real work, unlike sort of skirting the coast where you can have support from the ocean. So you've got a lot of logistics and stuff here. So a couple of things. The CCP is not good at logistics, guys. They do very, very, very poorly. The CCP is really, well, they're not very good at a lot of things. But anyway, so their logistics are not going to be able to support them in this effort, I believe, and that they may get themselves into trouble. The Russians are doing their own thing, seemingly not connected to what the Chinese are doing, but they appear to be on a triangulating course and may meet in the middle. Or it may be that the Russians are called in to save the Chinese expedition, but the Chinese expedition is not small. The Russians, I don't know how many people are involved, but it's not thousands, and it's got only a few very large vehicles that they're moving. I think maybe 40 of them to move these very large chunks of equipment over to, you know, basically habitation, over to the lake to do some further examinations on lake stuff, is my understanding of it. So it's not a very large expedition, but they do have, basically they're going to be towing these large habitats on sleds. And so they'll have some level of resources there. But in any event, so we now have something happening where none of the rest of the world is acknowledging that the CCP is invading somebody else's country in Antarctica, right? It would be like I think they're about now 400 or 500 miles in. So it would be like, you know, the Mexican army coming up 400 miles into the US and nobody's saying shit about it. Apparently it was a large number of CCP personnel. I don't know what they're equipped with or any of those kind of particulars, and you can't get any imaging on this. So someone's keeping the imaging suppressed. But very interesting. Why are they doing it? Why are they going inland to this very inhospitable place? Why now? And what do they expect to find there?
Yeah. How many countries have control or have ownership supposedly in Antarctica? Is it everybody, or is it just a handful?
No, there's it's like the G7 kind of thing. I mean, it's a limited number. I'd have to look it up to be honest. But you know, it's basically the original explorers of the area, Russia, Norway, US, Chile, any of the countries in periphery, New Zealand and Australia. So it's kind of like the Arctic, right? China has an Arctic presence in the form of naval vessels, but they have no ownership the way that Canada, the US, and Russia do.
Okay.
And Antarctica is unique because Norway explored and Russia explored, so they made claims. Germany's got a big area because they explored. So, so there's different claims on the land, and then all the people got together, their militaries got together, they turned it over to international military control, basically nominally with the US and Russia, or US and NATO in charge. And it's all operated through them. In order to get to go there, your passport has to be cleared through military. I think all of those passport clearances ultimately go through the US military, but I'm uncertain about that.
And I would like to tell anybody who thinks this is crazy talk, go back to John Kerry leaving the night of the election, of the Clinton election, to fly down to Antarctica to have meetings. So I'm
Right.
just
That alien, the giant head or whoever. Yeah, nuts. This is, and then right after the election, who did Trump send? Gingrich.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
To Antarctica. And you know, we think it's just a couple scientists looking at the penguins.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a bunch of people. There's like Art Alien TV, and there's a bunch of these guys that look at Mars Explorer or Mars photos, and they see all of the stuff NASA's hiding. And they also do that with moon shots and so on. A lot of people are now doing it with Antarctica because the Antarctica photos on Google Maps and all of these things have been obscured and deliberately airbrushed and this kind of a thing. And they're finding a great deal of stuff. And it makes sense because, you know, the ice preserving all of that stuff for all of this time. And now we're getting a weirdness with the climate where the ice is moving offshore. So we've actually had, everybody says, oh, global warming, the ice in Antarctica is melting. Well, okay, it's melting around one little western edge, but on the eastern side, there's 4 times as much on the sea ice now than has existed. So it appears that the ice is shifting off of Antarctica proper and moving the ice mass itself. So the ice mass may be growing like an amoeba might move, where it would send out its probes and latch onto something and then pull its body along behind it. And so we may find that Antarctica becomes ice-free as the ice creeps off into the water, the way that we have ice floating up in the Arctic. And that, of course, would be coincident with, or probably a result of the expansion of the Earth that is now ongoing. We know that the Earth is expanding now down in Antarctica, in between Antarctica and Chile, in between Antarctica and Africa. And those are the 2 points that connect to Antarctica the closest. Australia and New Zealand are way the hell away, and their trenches between them are very deep. The trenches between Chile and between South America and Antarctica and between Africa and Antarctica, Africa more so, but are not as deep and are more recent geologically. And so I think we're going to get more space between South America and Antarctica in this expansion event. If so, it makes sense that the ice would be shifting over on that side of Antarctica as the Earth is bulging out, so to speak, on the other side. Now, you know, we're talking not tomorrow. All right, it's going to take a while.
We still haven't seen, and we still haven't seen the exposure of the documents from the building yet. That was correct?
No, and look at what happened with Washington, D.C. recently, right? The permanent structure around all of the monumentizing. Is Congress allowed to go to work? You know, have you seen the security fence? That's like serious.
The Senate building, last 2 days, I saw it yesterday. Guys walking over there, there's a ton of police now and a ton of military armed around the Senate building. And again, that girl that I quoted you from earlier, she goes, McConnell, I can hear your ass puckering from here. And then she posted a tweet that someone else did about that. And I'm going, oh shit. Okay.
And all of the soldiers are now on the outside of the barriers. They've now got the 3-panel airlock kind of Brandenburg Gate thing, so that when you go in, you're trapped twice in a cage, right, to get through into it. But all the soldiers are on the outside. This is just really interesting. It's looking more and more like a military prison.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what that structure is that they're building in front of the White House? It's huge. It's bigger than the White House.
I know.
I was telling him I hope it's gallows, but you know.
That'd be, I don't know. I mean, you got to be processing a lot of people to have it be that big. I do not know what's going on. It is just really bizarre. We've also had very unusual military activity on the West Coast, all over the nation, but also on the West Coast. There's been some concentrations of it, and I'm not going to go into specifics or anything, but again, it's very unexplained. Right? There's just inexplicable. There's just no rhyme nor reason for what they're doing and this time of year.
Can we talk about cryptos a little bit?
Sure.
A lot of people, having lived through a couple crashes in Bitcoin, a lot of people are saying, is there anything in the data that says we're going to have another big crash before we have another run up?
No, there's the stuff that the next big crash, so to speak, where people will apply that term in the data was from it was the $64,000 question, right? As we get close to $64,000, there's going to be a crash that'll take maybe down to 40 something. Might be 44, it might be 46, might be 42. I don't know. That's 42,000 for the Bitcoin, but that's a correction, not a crash, in my opinion. And that should occur this year as we go up into the $100,000 Bitcoin. But this is not a good thing, people, right? Because the $100,000 Bitcoin means the financial system is at a point of instability that is just going to be mind numbing. At that point, I will be living in a world where, as an old man, it will be necessary for me to be armed at all times when I'm off my property, and most times when I'm on my property, just because the general state of the planet or of the US at that stage, but also of the planet due to what's going on with the reserve currency. So it's one thing as a kid to take your $1 bill in 1960 and go down to Italy, go from Germany down to Italy and get a whole stack of lira and suddenly feel the wealth effect. You got a whole stack of lira for your $1, right? And so that's one thing. But then you go to buy anything with it, and you got to give out that whole stack. And sometimes you got to give out more than your whole stack that you've got. Yeah. And that's just because the price went up that day. That's the kind of conditions that we had in the 60s. In Italy, it was not due to the Italians, it was due to the French, because the French were having a 1-for-5 franc swap, the old francs for the new francs. So the France at that time, and had lost them all and had vast quantities of debt and had to do something. So they had to restructure their money. And they said they had hyperinflation that was going to start approaching Weimar kind of terms. And so they said to all of the citizens, you give us all your old francs and we'll give you a new franc. And you give us 5 old francs and we'll give you 1 new franc. But and everybody said, no way. And they said, then the government said, well, after this date, you won't be able to spend your old francs. It'll be illegal to even possess them. And we'll think you're a criminal if you possess them, and you've got to turn them in. And of course, at that time, they really tried to clean up the criminal aspect of their society by, you had to prove you had the right to have those francs to turn them in. So if you had 1 million francs, you'd better show some way you earned it, right? In order to get 1/5 of that in new francs. So it was a huge debacle that rippled the currencies of Europe all over. This was ultimately what led to George Soros being able to make bets against the British pound and make $1 billion, was the same kind of a situation. And so we're at that point right now. Cryptos are, Bitcoin is still a Bitcoin. Now, all of a sudden, the dollar is so worthless, you got to get 100,000 of them instead of the 10 cents that Bitcoin used to cost when we first got messing around with the thing, right? My first Bitcoin, I sent back and forth to my guy Kale and myself until it was destroyed in fees. But it only cost 10 cents, right? So we're now in this very unsettled times. And we can't think that there's going to be a normal until 2026. So we're in a very Interesting period of huge opportunities, life changing continuously. You'll change your life today, and then 3 weeks later, it'll change all over again, that kind of thing. But it's going to be vastly exciting, and the world will transform itself, or humanity will transform itself on the sphere of this planet over these next 5 years. During that period of time, as we may suspect, it's going to be a little bit less than stable.
Now talk about for a second. I think there was 3 events with the dollar where they try to kickstart it, fails. What's that again? Tell us about that.
Okay, so we would come into year Woo, and as part of the Woo, the powers that be would say basically, as they said with the Great Reset, that the dollar's long in the tooth, we got to do something, we need a new system. And the populace would say basically no 3 times. And then each time, each proffered solution would be weaker than the last. And so, so the solutions they're going to offer are basically going to be rejected, and we'll evolve our own system out of that. And that leads to the ultimate and secrets revealed and all of this. Because see, here's the thing. All secrets are connected, and we've just destroyed $72 billion of bribe money. So a lot of people are going to go unbribed. And a lot of people are going to start hurting when they used to live on bribe money and they don't have anything else. So one thing they may turn to is selling the information they were using as you know, the value for that bribe. And so that stuff will start coming on out. And then one secret's tied to the next, is tied to the next, and so on. And as they unravel, the power structure, the illusion, the narrative for the powers that be fades and fades and fades and fades. And then we just get into basically sci-fi world, which is very much like, well, something we have to invent, but it is not the old structured normal. So it's no longer the Piscean, everybody flocking or schooling together. It's very much the age of knowledge. And actually, this was something, an insight that I'd come into the other day. We have a situation here where the powers that be are trying to protect their turf. So they're fighting for land. They're fighting defensively even, because they can't go out and short of, you know, having an army come on in and conquer Canada or something, they can't acquire more territory. So they're, and even abstractly in their systems, you know, they can't create a new SEC or a new COMEX or that kind of stuff and have it easily work and so on. So they can't really acquire new territory. They're fighting defensive land value wars. But the populace, the orcs, are fighting for knowledge. None of the people that participated in GameStop were attempting to take control, to seize anything, to dominate anything that way. They were fighting for knowledge they were fighting for the abstraction, that is the knowledge that they knew it was a short stop. They knew these guys were vulnerable, and they were going to squeeze them for this particular money, for basically because the whole system is now exposed and is open. So we now have our metaphors, our analogies for our combatants here. The globalists are fighting turf wars from the last couple of centuries, whereas the orcs are fighting for knowledge, which is where power lies in the future, right? Because look at, you know, if I came along right now, and I'm only 2 fundamental breakthroughs away from achieving it, and I have my magnetic drive that I can put into my RV and I can go float about, then sorry, Joe, your Tesla is a boat anchor.
Yep.
Tesla is instantly wiped out, and Star, whatever the hell that, you know, SpaceX, instantly wiped out, all because of knowledge. And so no matter how much they fight for those resources for land, they are doomed. We're in a new paradigm, another 2,160 years, and we're in the very first year of that.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. Even though some scary stuff is going on, it's still awesome.
Well, you know, why do people go to horror movies?
Right.
For the rush, you know.
That's why we incarnated.
Adventure movie.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty cool though.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to discuss, or
No, I mean, anything you want to talk about. We can talk about, the cryptos and so on. I think that Bitcoin's going to do real well. I think we're going to have a big fallout on cryptos, though, as we get into the war with China, because of the mining aspects of it and all of this kind of stuff. And also there's going to be, now we're going to have competing issues with governments bringing out their own cryptos. So I don't know how that's going to go, right? They're going to try and force people to use their version of a digital dollar, so to speak,
right.
their version, that kind of thing. But absent a blockchain, again, maybe that'll be, several governments might offer a digital currency that goes nowhere, and that can be tabulated as one of our replacements for the dollar, because it is global. The problem is global. Now there is, okay, so we have to acknowledge one other thing. Okay, so let's delve into a less than likely possibility, but or less than likely probability, but a very definite possibility, a very definite potential. Very definite potential would be that the US dollar would strengthen. And it would strengthen because of what happens here, whether it's political or whether it's financial. And it would strengthen because these people screw up so badly that in the process of this emotional spike and the response, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of firms, hedge funds, the money banks, the bullion banks, these kind of things get so battered that vast numbers of digital dollars are destroyed. And the fractional reserve banking system is basically cut off at a big section under taken out from the knees, right? And just drops down. So its mass is reduced. If the mass of digital dollars were to be reduced in a significant level, then it would be possible to see that we would be resorting to physical dollars. And there's a worldwide shortage of physical dollars. And in this case, the Colombian and Mexican drug lords would be dominant power players because they are stupid and they store it in physical dollars that, rats come and eat. They've got so many of them. But those would be coming back to the United States. All of the dollars are going to come back to the US no matter what in this process. And that's part of our hyperinflationary worry, is that all of the vast derivatives and everything will be coming back to the US to get destroyed basically in this crack up boom that we're going through, the way that the 72 billion here was taken out of the hedge funds. If that happens, it could be, though, that the way that dollars come back is such that the digital stuff goes away so fast that we are reduced to a small circulating supply of actual dollars, and the purchasing power might actually go up for the physical. And that lends to the idea of $600 silver and so on, because it would be a more sure repository. And you could see that, yeah, I could take $600, convert it to silver, go across the country, and then unfold it, so to speak, and have my 600 again.
There is I've been talking about this for over 20 years now, the difference between a Federal Reserve note, a coin minted by the US Mint. I mean, you'd see pre-1965 coinage as kind of the staple, everybody running around with their silver dimes as the old system implodes. And it gets into a weird thing. It's like, well, how can hyperinflation happen? But at the same time, the destruction of money is happening, and the true US dollar, whatever that is, will shine.
And the fact is, hyperinflation is always destruction of currency. Okay, because in Weimar Republic, when you brought in your tons of money to the baker to get your loaf of bread, ultimately all those Reichsmarks ended up back up the treasury, and where they would just destroy them because they were printing them out faster on the other end. Mm-hmm. It's just is this bizarre system to keep us all involved and moving. We're in a transition period where we're going to reinvent the future, and the powers that be have prompted us along by some of the moves they've made, right? It's really interesting that we find the rise of Antifa now, and the Boogaloo Boys, that's what they're called, and those guys, right? Okay, because those are akin to the brown shirts and the SS that formed up under Hitler and supported the Hitler. We've had our Reichstag fire. We haven't had the Night of the Long Knives. We haven't had a Kristallnacht. Okay, but maybe we're going to come close, but that would be something that would be, racially motivated. like in Germany, they were attacking the Jews. But here we have a situation where we have parallels to what was going on basically close to this time in the last century coming out now. And it's like, if you look, you see that way back into the 1700s, the powers that be had similar kinds of organizations that were serving their purposes in periods of instability and leading up to American Revolution, these kind of things, right? In England, they had the equivalent of Antifa, and it led a lot of the Puritans to say, we can't live with this basic street violence and being subjected to religious persecution every time we go out of our houses. So we see that these same kind of moves from the power players are being repeated over and over and over again. And so far, they've always yielded the results that the power players were able to live with, if not desire. Now I think that won't happen. And I think that the internet has really changed all of that, the Great Awakening, we're all seeing it for ourselves. Even the people that are unwittingly playing these historical roles, even the numbnuts that, chaos people that are in Antifa now going out and beating up people and stuff, are an unwitting thuggery for the powers that be, are deluded that they don't recognize their own participation. So we have the Boogaloo Boys in my state standing in the state capitol with arms, whatever, semi-automatics, that kind of thing, wearing their body armor, shouting insults at Proud Boys and old guys like me, calling us statists. And we don't support the state. We support a constitution, entirely different thing, right? So it was just that the change was that, oh, now we're in charge. We can't have these guys. So now the powers that be are going to have to put those fellows down. And it's like all of a sudden they've made Antifa my potential allies. Because now Antifa, who truly are statists, in spite of the fact that they would say that they're anarchists, are going to end up having to be controlled by the state that set them up. And so all of these emotional waves have been started in our little pond, and here we are bobbing up as corks, watching it all, getting our popcorn ready and so on, because it is just so fascinating. And look at the pain that came out in these last 2 days. Well, that pain was basically just in these 2 days. The forecast for this energy spike here is that it drops in the same day, some level, and then continues that level of pain for the powers that be.
Elevated.
Elevated. And it is forced change. That's the electrifying of the populace, electrifying our nerves, and forced change. So what the hell kind of change is going to be forced? I don't know. Who's it going to be forced on? But we're going to have to live with it. We're all going to have to adapt, because bear in mind, any changes forced on the powers that be ultimately are also forced on us.
So I ordered I actually placed the order for a off-grid RV, and it's going to be delivered in,
Hey!
I know, finally. It's a Winnebago Echo. But my problem now is it's supposed to be arriving in the end of March, beginning of April. And I'm like, wait a minute, all these car manufacturers are having problems getting parts these days. And I'm like, oh, please, I finally get there. And now I might not even get it. I don't even know.
Oh, how long is it?
It's a short one. It's like 24 feet.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I was sort of looking for something to make it a little bit more convenient for us to do driving around. You wouldn't believe all the woes with our vehicles here. I had a mainspring break on my FJ Cruiser at 70 miles an hour on the freeway the other day. And because we hit something in the road, don't know what the hell it was. It was metal, had fallen off on a truck. But also we have other issues here. So I was just sort of looking for, a new RV to maybe put my mag drive in, right? Just to, at this point, just to get settled, I think.
I remember you telling me, because you were telling me about you're going to invent a flying RV, and I'm like, oh man, should I hold off on my RV? And you're like, no, we can put the flying part in your RV.
Right. Right.
Will that thing work in a big diesel pusher?
Is it? It's a diesel?
Mine's a diesel pusher.
Yeah, you gotta have diesel. The gas engines are okay, but you know, having that GMC with the biggest gas engine you can imagine. I mean, it's a giant mother. I don't know how big it is, but it still is. It's sluggish doing hills, you know.
And if
And
you're towing something, forget it. Yeah.
yeah. So you really need to think about going diesel. If they're still building it, convert over, or tell them leave the engine out and put it in aftermarket. That's what I was going to do, was to put a diesel into the GMC. And then I got off onto the mag drive. Let me divert on that for a second. Big congratulations to me, because one of my provisional patents on magnets has been granted.
Nice.
Okay.
Wow,
So
that's
this was one on magnetic shielding as a result of the High effect, and being able to use a dynamic folded blended magnetic field as a destructive force for magnetism. Now I have to complete that patent and get it filed, you know, but so far I've got a year, basically, or almost a year to get it done. I can add in a bunch of the other stuff I've discovered since filing that one. But so I've got 2 more pending. So the patent office is accepting of this and accepting of the presentation. Now, I wanted to say that we have 2 remaining hurdles, one conceptual and one material. And so we know, for instance, that one of the things we're going to require is what we're calling a magnetic field induction diode, okay, an MFID. And it's like a LED. Okay, so in all of our lights now are these LEDs, and LEDs are this little wafer. And if you look real close to the magnifier, you see that it's all these little lines that are parallel to each other, and there's a couple of gaps in there. And what they do is they shoot electricity into the gallium arsenate substrate, and it jumps across these little gaps that are in there. And when it jumps across the gaps, it creates light. Unlike the incandescent bulb, which glowed, unlike the fluorescent bulb, which excited the molecules of gases in there, those are irradiating, reflecting kind of light, okay? But LEDs are a primary light source. We are actually creating light there just exactly the same way the sun creates light, or the same way that an electric arc welder creates light at that point. And so an LED is a very interesting device that way. So we want to make a magnetic field creating diode, and we're going to use the same approach, which is to skip an electron across a gap, just like the LED. The only thing unknown at this stage, because it's conceptual, we know how to make LEDs and all of this kind of stuff. The only thing unknown at this stage is what material goes into our little magnetic field induction diode. It can't be gallium arsenide, because we know that that combination of materials, when you skip electricity through it, produces light. We need another set of materials that, when you skip electricity across it, produces magnetism. It's just a matter of an Edison-like hunt. So we got a lot of materials to hunt through combinations. If we had supercomputing power, we could cut this down once we figure out some of the parameters to judge on. So that's one conceptual hurdle, and that's just simply the doing of it. If I had a lab here and had enough people and we had enough materials coming in, we could fabricate and test until we eventually, like Edison, discovered that it was, you know, a carbonized bamboo filament that made the incandescent bulb. So it's just a matter of doing that. The other one is conceptual. We know that we know about the concept, how it needs to perform. We can identify the parameters around it, and we just don't know how to solve this one particular problem. But these are the only 2 remaining issues within the magnetic drive. We know now how to use dynamic magnetic shielding to protect the occupants. We know that we will be using that same kind of dynamic magnetic shielding induced through the magnetic field induction diode to shield the whole structure itself from the local magnetic environment. And we know a great deal more stuff. So it's possible that within the next 10 years, we will have an actual demonstrable anti-gravity device. It really isn't. It's a magnetic suspension device more than anything, but it suspends itself relative to the magnetism of the local environment, not necessarily metal, because all of universe is magnetism. And we've also discovered that the frequency range of all magnets is 1748 hertz or cycles per second. But we've also discovered that if you pulse magnetism, if you apply discrete pulses, it works at a macro or micro level and may scale to macro, and pulse it up to our friend 19.45, which, you know, we all know the significance of that. You know, Hawaii is on the, you know, it's a sacred geometry number, 19, you know, so 19.5, that's the latitude. It's just look it up relative to sacred geometry. It's everywhere. And so, but pulsing up to 19.45 creates an interesting series of field effects that may even be effective relative to spintronics, putting more and more data into smaller and smaller places. But we're very, very, very close on that. I can't do much of it because of my conditions here at the moment, but these other individuals are making a lot of progress. The conceptual one is, of course, the hardest, and that may result in its own material hunt. We just don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, we've done some interesting work. I mean, we can demonstrate now a way of, oh, well, actually, there's one other thing. Okay, conceptually, we do know something. In our conceptual problem that we can't fix now, we know that it can be, that it is solved, that in the creation of an electromagnetic pulse, and specifically in the creation of an electromagnetic pulse weapon, you create the conditions that would propel a magnetic, but this thing is magnetically isolated from the local environment. It would be propelled by the magnetism in that explosion, not the compression, not any of that. It would be propelled by the magnetism in it at fantastic rates of speed, beyond our ability to accurately count in miles per hour, because it would be, all right, so you can go around the planet in 1 second, or you can go from here to the moon in 1 second. So the miles per hour is relatively, on those, is, you know, is meaningless. It's just how far you can travel in that 1 second. But we know that this electromagnetic pulse weapons, they create the conditions that would allow us to do this. And there was a reference to a weird, curious experiment in an electromagnetic pulse weapon lab that has never been recreated, although they tried for some period of time before giving it up. And when you set off an EMP weapon, it goes out everywhere in all directions, okay? It's not possible to put shielding over it or anything in the current form of EMP weapons as opposed to an explosion. But because of the nature of it, you can't shield it. It goes out in a sphere form. But in this one particular experiment, they had something occur where they had 3 distinct lines of magnetic force that were centrally hubbed and were like a starfish with 3 arms. Never before created, never since recreated. And they were able to, in their fashion, image it. And this comes from the late 70s, this particular experiment. And apparently they tried to, for a number of years, 2 or 3 or 4 years, to recreate it because it was so fascinating and it yielded such interesting conditions. I got to read a little bit about it and talk to one of the guys who was involved in it. And, you know, he had some promising information that basically tells me that what they were attempting to do at that time may be something that, right? So we don't need that part.
Was it in Star Trek? Isn't that how the Enterprise was powered through nuclear or something?
I have no idea. I know they were powered by the nacelles and they went to warp speed, but, you know, I was in Germany when Star Trek came out, right? So I never really got I came back and everybody was talking about Star Trek and it's like, you know, you sort of had to be there. I watched a few episodes. It was cool, but, you know.
But it's, I mean, to me, it always fascinated me that all these gadgets they had back in, you know, when was it, 1960s, are now coming true. Sure. Especially in our sci-fi world that clearly has begun.
Did you look at the Navy patents about the
Clif? 2004, yeah, I've seen those are old. There's a whole series of those, okay, that were produced at that period of time. I think that they were placeholders or to provide protection against what's that, you know, the patent sharks, those kind of guys. So I don't really think that they're valid. There are suggestions that we're using some of that technology on our current airplanes with, you know, the ion layers around the B52 and this kind of thing to make them go faster and be more secure. And that gives them the shimmering effect in the air when you see them flying, because they're actually dissipating the air ahead of getting into it, so to speak, so that they reduce friction with the negative ions.
Okay. Cool. Well, I don't want to upset anybody, but I kind of got to go.
Yeah, I have to too. I just noticed the time. I got to get back in. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got all the good stuff off. If any of you guys got in here late, just rewatch the video. All that good stuff was talked up front, I think, most of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll see. Not too long to wait. And it's going to be quite fascinating.
Yep.
Very
Okay,
All right,
guys.
guys. Till next time.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.